All right. Welcome, everybody. Episode 13. Mike, we've been here for 13 whole episodes, man.
Yeah. I mean, 13 is a long time in AI years.
Yeah. It's like 2.5 decades.
AI years. That's
Yeah.
where we're getting to now.
Indeed. So, awesome show lined up for everyone today. Big news coming out of OpenAI. And this episode actually is really good timing because the previous episode, which we're actually going to launch alongside this one, was a in-depth comparison of 3 different image large language models. So today, OpenAI has announced Sora, which is their text-to-video model that just came out. Pretty mind-blowing. The sample demo footage looks absolutely pretty good. So we're going to get into it. We're going to analyze it. We're going to talk about our thoughts. Mike kind of got punked by it. We're going to talk about that. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, I did.
So yeah. Let's jump right in, Mike. What happened? Tell us about your experience when you started testing Sora. So what were you trying to do? I understand that you're obviously like a screenwriter, right? So you're writing a bunch of stuff, and the test was to say, hey, I have a bunch of material, and let's see if this thing can make something out of it, right? So
yeah,
before we get into it, maybe let's just talk about what this thing is supposed to do. Sorry to back up. Well, I'm a little bit excited to get into this. So
we were, as we've discussed in a previous podcast, we're concerned about the way that AI is going to handle video, right? So yes. It's like there's all these factors and actors and people who are getting paid to do this stuff now. Then all of a sudden their jobs are at risk, and there's obviously that. But coming off the heels of last week's episode where we literally were typing in prompts and couldn't get it to do these very nuanced things or got results completely different based on a comma or apostrophe, all of a sudden OpenAI announced this launch of this product, and we were like, whoa, like these images are so much, the video is so much better than the images. It was unreal how good the quality was on the images, the videos that were being generated from a text prompt. And the text prompt looked pretty basic. It wasn't anything that was, complex. And so in preparation for the podcast, I said, I'm going to go use this. I have to get on it and see what it's going to do, because if I can, type a paragraph and see a video of what I just typed, like this is a game changer for somebody who likes movies and wants to write movies. This is, I don't have to involve anybody else. I can just do this myself. Like that was a very exciting moment.
Yeah, for sure. You know what really struck me was the lack of detailed prompt. So the prompts that we see during the demo here are pretty basic. So for example, prompt: several giant woolly mammoths approach, treading through a snowy meadow. Their long woolly fur lightly blows in the wind as they walk. Snow-covered trees and dramatic snow-capped mountains in the distance. Mid-afternoon light with wispy clouds and sun high in the distance creates a warm glow. The low camera view is stunning, capturing a large furry mammal with beautiful photography depth of field. However, there appears to be, I thought it was an avalanche at first coming behind these woolly mammoths, but I guess they're just like multi-ton beasts. And as they walk through the snow, there's a lot of disturbance and snow. I would chalk it.
It was impressive.
It's impressive.
I was not even being critical in any way, shape, or form. I was just like, oh my god! Like I was watching the videos completely raw without watching looking at the prompts or anything. I was straight up just AI made these videos. Like I started off, I was like, oh, that girl's legs are too skinny, and when it started, but it was like nothing prepared me for the shock of seeing it that realistic.
Well, what is nailed
from the prompt?
Yeah,
it was like,
and this one with the space dude prompt, a movie trailer featuring the adventures of a 30-year-old spaceman wearing a red knotted knitted wool motorcycle helmet, blue sky, salt desert, cinematic style, shot on 35 millimeter field. So film. So like this guy looks like he looks completely real. So that is quite wild for sure. They definitely have dialed the whole thing in substantially.
So in preparation, I said, wow, I have a million different ideas. I'm going to just prompt ChatGPT to give me a prompt to write a video the way that I want it to be based on. And it was like this kind of formulaic prompt where I just said, okay, like it said, like, enter your product. And I was just like, oh, okay, like I'll just going to put Stackability AI in here and I'm going to see what it comes up with. Right. I want to see what they think it is. Who knows? Right. And so I put that in and it gives me this script. And the script was, pulled from some things from our website. And it was this glowing script about how, good we were and the things we were trying to do. And like, as if somebody had just stolen the ideas out of my head. I was like, this is sharp. I like this. I wouldn't change a word, So then I'm like, okay, like generate the video. And the video comes up and it says, here's a link to your video. You've been rickrolled. And I was like, what? And then I clicked the link and it's literally Rick Astley singing Never Gonna Give You Up, which is absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I guess.
I just, to me, that just strikes me so perfectly funny that and I just recently watched this Vice episode about like how it was made, and it was about Rick Astley and the song, and it was like he wrote the song, had a big hit, went into obscurity because he only had the one song really, and then in the 90s, or actually in the early 2000s, when people started using email, they would create a link and say, hey, like, here's some pictures of my family, click this link. And, people back then were naive enough to to click the button, and they clicked it and it would take them to the video of Rick Astley. So he had a resurgence, and his whole, he's had so many more record sales, CD sales, all this stuff. And so he had that was his second rising. And then recently, probably about a year ago, Rick Astley was touring again and was in a town that the Foo Fighters were in. And he wound up going to the Foo Fighters concert. The security knew who he was, so they took him to the side of the stage. And what Rick Astley didn't know is that the Foo Fighters do a version of Never Gonna Give You Up as their sound check in a Nirvana style, and that's one of their sound check songs. So Dave Grohl looks over at Rick Astley, and then he, like, in the middle of, like, while they're in the middle of a jam, he walks over to the side of the stage and says, hey, do you want to come out and sing a song with us? So he comes out and sings Never Gonna Give You Up with a Foo Fighters playing a Nirvana version of the song, and that became the next Rick Astley return. So
That's
yeah,
incredible.
so the idea that he's getting rickrolled by an AI company is like that's kind of cool. Like I have a fondness for the joke. It's a long joke. It's like a 40-year joke, but it's like I appreciate that.
Yeah, I wonder how
it's
many.
The first time I was like,
I wonder how many people are actually going to get it. A, and B, I wonder how many people are actually going to get that response. So, did you try different? I haven't tried this yet, but
yeah.
have you tried different prompts to see if it will give you something?
Oh yeah,
And it rickrolls you every time.
Every time, time, every time the link says the same exact thing. It's just like, here, I'll read it. It's like, the video has been generated and is accessible during the following link by following this link, and the link is rickrolled.
Yeah,
and it opens you up to a 7-second video of Never Gonna Give You Up.
Amazing.
So
two things. One, this is still in testing. I don't think that this was really like an official launch, from what I understand. Correct me if I'm wrong. So that's definitely part of it. And two, like, you got to imagine the amount of usage this is undergoing right now. So
generating.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
god.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's a amazing marketing ploy. Like it's brilliant
Well,
because it's like
yeah,
anybody who was, apprehensive, has gone in and put in their dreams, hopes, and aspirations into a prompt. It's
yeah,
just more data they got.
yeah,
But
exactly.
it's interesting to see that, and also to know that we're probably 6 months away from it being possible anyway. We're not that far away. It's not like they just showed us a picture of the distant future. The people, I can say, since we started the podcast, not because we've started the podcast, but just because of awareness, more and more people are starting to look around, and that I've talked to, not have brought it up to me, that they're starting to get concerned
Yeah,
about some of these things.
sure.
It's happening before. It's happening faster than anyone could predict, and that's the thing with Moore's law. It keeps building on itself exponentially. It doesn't go from 2 to 3 anymore, or from 2 to 4 to 4 to 8. We're in the billions of cycles of that in terms of technology. So it's just going to accelerate at a pace that is like warp speed.
Yeah,
I
it,
mean, think
it
about the things that have changed in a year, in one
it's
year.
I've never seen anything like it. Last year feels like 10 years ago. So it's exhausting, but really like amazing all at the same time. So one thing that I noted here is yes. So let's talk about this. If we look through some of these videos here. So one thing that is amazing is the quality. The camera angles are fantastic. The particle rendering is amazing. So let's pick this thing apart here. So yes, for sure things are moving very fast. People are definitely starting to become more and more aware. I think that 2024 is going to be a monumental year for this sort of thing, for AI in general, for generative AI. I think that you're going to really see monthly releases here with really cool stuff happening. But let's talk about the practical applications of this. So this video capability, text to video, from what I understand, we're dealing with something that can produce like a minute's worth of video footage, which is cool, but that's only going to go so far. So if we're talking about really like how does this disrupt like an industry, like how does it make a movie? Like it can't right now. So to go from 1 minute to a feature length film, I'd be interested to see how that really progresses. Another thing, looking through these, if you really focus on the footage and some of the things that are happening, I think there's definitely hallucinations. Like the text. Like I'm looking at this shot of an old Range Rover, and it says Danover on it. So I like there's gonna have to become a point here where they can A, solve for hallucinations, and B, like get text rendering correctly. So that's gonna be a huge thing for any video, really. Like I guess you can kind of get away with it for still photography and photos because you can always go into Photoshop and you can fix that stuff. But for video, like you need to have complete confidence that it's not going to hallucinate and you're going to get text correct.
Well, I think that you're right in terms of things that matter, but there are probably some copyright things where, if you were doing a scene with a gas station, they couldn't use Getty, or they would have to pay for it or
Villains.
whatever. So like most, if you think about in movies, most of the signs or the things, like they only show you the ones that matter. So it's like if you pull up to a gas station, I'm not like reading the sign at the gas station unless they pan into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, like, in a film perspective, the way to think about it is, so if I'm writing a 90-page script, about it's a romantic comedy. Basically, I know that it's a page a minute. So if I can create 90 related 1 minute images, 1 minute, shorts, I've basically created a movie,
Yeah.
because it's, a page a minute. Each minute is, you just make each minute a scene. We're kind of used to that cadence now because, Instagram videos are a minute and everything is minutes with the shorts on YouTube. Everybody's in a minute mode. So if you just get into that idea of writing that every 1 minute is a new scene, or you can continue the same scene and do it for another minute if you have to, or if it's something that's happening that you could extend. If they could do 1 minute videos, it's not going to be long before it could do 90 or 120-minute videos. And this is where it affects the film industry. And we were talking about that earlier. The filmmaker, from a writing perspective, this is not all bad. The thing that I like about the movie making process is writing. Like the rest of it is just garbage. It's like waiting around, a bunch of people moving stuff, and then it's like, okay, well, can we fix this, scene a little bit and change okay, I like that, so I like, okay, go in there, let's rework a scene, let's make something cooler, let's make it funnier, let's make it, it's not quite the way we thought it was going to be. That part's awesome, but that's the stuff that I do naturally. So for me to be able to write words and then type them into, a prompt and get to see my vision, and then to get other people to possibly see my vision of this story that I'm trying to tell the way I want it to be without having a director and other actors and all that stuff, like that's kind of sexy to me. That's why
Yeah.
I was excited about getting into it, and then I got rickrolled. So it's like, it's perfect. It's full circle.
Well, so I mean, it is
So
full.
it still does it just like the movie business. It screws you either way.
Exactly. It's pretty funny. You can't make it up. So
No.
yeah, I really can't wait to see how this plays out, because now we have yet another creative medium that can potentially just the time to market has been drastically shortened. And I always compare it to technology affecting music, a decade ago, when, or not even whenever, when you could just, it was so much easier to make music because we had technology, we had advanced DAW recording setups, we had the ability to just make and distribute music much easier than in the past. And that made it really hard for any artist to really, make and promote the music. It was really not like making it was obviously much easier. What happened was it was very hard to promote it and get people to watch it. So we have this same thing unfolding on so many different levels because of AI. And I think that's really, to me, where the conversation is. It's great. Like, this is cool. I think that it's impressive, but I'm very much having a hard time wrapping my brain around where it goes in terms of like real, like, scale and people like making real money off of it, right? It's one thing to say, hey, I want to use this to create like a short or like a promo video. Awesome. Maybe that's the use case. Maybe it finds a little home there. Maybe to your point, you make 60 of these things and you edit it together. That's like the short term, before, the long-term vision is, hey, here's a whole entire script. Go for it. Boom. It's very similar to, in some cases, what certain people are doing with automated agent swarms, where you basically have a bunch of GPTs, a bunch of AIs working together, and they all know their role in the system. So you can have a producer, you can have a set of actors, and they all know their roles in the project, in the script, in this case, in the movie. So you could go ahead and load them up right? And then say, okay, this is your role. You're actor A. This is your role. You're actor B. Okay, you're the director. I'm the writer. They're all their own AIs, and the end product here is like a distributed creation of a movie, right?
Well, it's funny because as you were talking about it, I was imagining in my head how I would use it or how it could be used. And, I think that it's smart to design the ideas to be a minute or 2 minutes. I think, we're being trained by these videos that we watch now where, we scroll, through Instagram and they're 1 minute videos, 2 minute videos, 3 minute videos. We might not last the 3 minutes, but it's there if we want in-depth analysis of something. And that our attention span has been consistently sliced and sliced and sliced from the movie to the music video to the 1 hour of television. When MTV started, we'd see 20 music videos or 15 music videos and how many commercials, just dicing up our time and our attention span. I have a friend who has an Instagram series called Greg in LA. It's awesome. It's so funny. And they're only on Instagram. I think they actually might have put it on YouTube now, but they're 30 something episodes, 3 seasons, like going to start the fourth season. And it's written for Instagram. So it's 1 minute, maybe 3 minutes, possibly tops. You have to like click to keep watching, for a 3 minute video or something. It's great. It's funny. It's everything about it is great. So it's kind of cool to be able to, like, if you wanted to check it out tomorrow, you could binge the whole thing in a half hour, 3 seasons worth of information in about, maybe an hour, say maybe an hour. But I think our attention spans are changing. So if you thought about writing movies in 1 minute increments, you'd probably get to tell the same story in a shorter amount of time than you want. Like, I don't think people want to spend 2 or 3 hours in front of a movie watching it unfold slowly. I think people, I find that myself with, audiobooks or whatever, I look at a length of it the same way I used to look at the length of a book, when I was a kid. It just, oh man, I got to read 500 pages. Now I'm like, oh man, I really want to watch Oppenheimer, but it's like 3 hours. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really want. It's my first determinant
Yeah,
on whether I'm going to watch it or not.
So I do think that you're right there. It's a good point. And it's also very obvious that this is like the whole thing is just going to change humanity and society, right? It's just an extension of that conversation. We haven't had it in a while, but like I think that each time we get like a big release like this, it's just going to be more and more obvious that like things are going to completely change here very soon when all of this stuff starts to come together. This is just the technology that's being like reported on, because this is like sexy, right? It's like this is this stuff that can really get the general population's attention. But if you even go a little bit deeper below the surface, then you're going to start to come to the things like I was talking about before with the agent swarms and automated AIs, and like it really starts to become crazy when you put all this stuff together, right? It's awesome on its own, these individual pieces, but when it all comes together is really when we're going to have an insane thing happen here. So
Well, I hate the word swarm, right? Like the word swarm just like brings like chills down my spine.
yeah, it's a bad
And
name, but that's
but that's what they're called.
yeah.
I mean, that's what it's called. All I'm saying is that it's like when I have my own ideas about the way things are going to go, and we talked about it before we started the podcast, that we want to make sure that we try and spin it as positively as possible, and think about things. But there are general realities that are very hard to get our brains around when you think about this technology changing things so much and so much money being put into it. Sam Altman just is trying to raise $7 trillion to do a new chip making manufacturing $7
Yeah,
trillion dollars. Like
it's fucking bonkers.
you could raise that. I mean, like that's a
Well,
number.
yeah,
What
I mean that
it's
alone, just the fact that he's trying to do that speaks volumes to what is happening here. Nobody, I don't. Nobody is even. I mean, has anybody even tried to raise $1 billion? Like, I mean, like that.
right.
Even
It's
that, it's like, you fucking kidding me. But like,
and then it's not like 1 trillion, it's like 7 trillion.
yeah,
It's not
seven
even
trillion.
it's what like what the hell are you talking about? Like where did this is part of the thing. And I remember very, very specifically one night, Austin, and you and I were sitting on your back step, and you said like, well, who's gonna do all the work? Like, who's gonna pay for all this? And it's like these numbers now that they throw around, it's like, it doesn't, it's monopoly money. It's like it's not real. Like none of this money
No,
is real.
it's
Like you
not.
could think you have money, but it's like they throw around a number like 7 trillion. I mean, I remember when Google first started, and I was with a friend, and we were like, oh, what's this? The internet was just kind of beginning, and it was like Google. And I'm like, what's a Google? Like, what is a Google? And it's like this number. It's an actual number. But it was like, never heard of it.
Yeah,
A trillion was fantasy land. I mean, like when you see that stat about like what the difference between like a million seconds and a billion seconds, it's like, and now you go from a billion to a trillion. It's like if you did that in seconds, a trillion seconds is probably like 10 light years. It's, it's like, it's so ridiculous.
yeah.
So what does money mean? Like, how many fucking zeros you want to put on the thing?
Well, it doesn't. It
What is it?
doesn't. Yeah, like it. Well, if you think about it, if you really unpack this, okay. Now, say like, how do you raise that much? You probably say you can't. Maybe you can. I don't know. Like, there's some crazy things that happen in the world, and there's people with a lot of money. So like, I can't visualize what $7 trillion is. However, say that you can use AI in the near future to have $1 trillion company, 1 trillion, but you only have like one or two people running it, right? You do that 7 times, and I mean, you can get most of your money right there, right? So it's a combination of that. That's like the thing, like the unlock. You're unlocking human productivity to an exponential rate, and you're solving the time problem considerably. So time is money. If that isn't the case anymore, where my time is in such a money suck, then I can do it. I can do whatever I want, right? So I can build a company off of one person, right, and give it $1 trillion valuation. That's part of one way that you could probably make that kind of money. Is he going to do that? Like, no, he'll probably get a bunch of like accelerationist type, venture capital funds to just give, like,
All right.
raise the money that way.
When you talk about that kind of money, it's
But
it's the planetary. I mean, I think the global economy is $14 trillion or something, and what does
it's
that
half of
actually
it,
even
right?
mean? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like it's half the global economy. This is what I'm saying. Like these numbers are getting so ridiculous, and there's so many factors that are not even taken into consideration while this is happening. So it's like there's got to be some outside force like pushing this. Where I mean,
See, like,
where's the urgency? Like
well, here's the thing, dude. This
where did
is
that urgency come from?
this is
Like,
where it gets yeah, this is where it gets really, really hard to apply like normal thinking to, because I think it's like there's probably two things at play here. One is a lot of showmanship. It's like it's part of the and I've always said that this is part of the go to market strategy with guys like Sam Altman and OpenAI. Is it's like, the more like insane shit you say, like the media is gonna eat it up. So I'm not saying that Sora isn't impressive. It's definitely impressive, but you have to. He can't. You can't get to say everybody wants AGI, and AGI is like the end goal here. Like, we clearly just can't get to it. So you have to basically drip out. So two things: A, you can't just get there. Even if you could, you can't just deploy that into humanity like immediately, because it's going to scare the shit out of people and your experiment is probably going to fail. So you need to do this incrementally, but you also have to do it incrementally enough with big enough impact and bang, because of the way that modern humanity is, and people just have very short attention spans. And each time you release something, it has to be bigger and better than the previous time. So I think that's part of the strategy here. And, I think the $7 trillion raise thing is probably just part of that as well. Like, I think that, yeah,
Yeah.
there's definitely, if I was to say, okay, fine, if I had $7 trillion and I was Sam Altman or any of these guys, like, I probably would be looking to build an advanced energy solve, because you can't have any of this crap without abundance of energy. And the fossil fuel infrastructure that we have now isn't going to support a modern AI driven world. So you need some like hardcore energy solves here, like pretty soon, right?
Yeah.
And processing like GPUs, like it's a whole other one. But at the end of that, like you can't do that at scale without like solving the energy problem. So you got to think about that. That's why I
Yeah.
think a lot of this is kind of bullshit in a lot of ways, because like who is working on that? Like there's nobody out in, I mean, I would hope that there is, because if not, this would all be a complete joke. Like we're all getting massively punked right now if no one is like really like trying to work on that piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, I think they are, and I think hydrogen and some kind of a combination of hydrogen and zero carbon kind of products are going to come. I think nuclear is going to be a big factor. It's one of these things that everybody's afraid of because of a couple of incidents where actually nobody died, or like when you look at the real numbers, and it's also 80-year-old technology now compared to what they're doing now in South Korea, putting in a nuclear power plant every other year or faster actually. But so there's definitely some things that are power solution. But I think I said it in one of our earlier podcasts. It was like, if you took a nuclear power plant and we're just using that only for open AI, you solve the problem. And it's like a nuclear power plant would not only satisfy the need of that, but could also make the money back in the local area that the servers were in. And you have a very viable business model that would probably cost you about 8 billion. You don't need 7 trillion for that, right? They're trying to recreate Taiwan by building a chip factory from
Yeah,
scratch, and
manufacturing. Yeah, it's. I
yeah,
mean, it's
so
like
it's
chips, robots. I mean, like,
yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
the 7
7
trillion
trillion.
probably isn't
It's
enough.
you all they said a stat about something that it was the global economy and how much of it was, but then also like, oh, and they would make it back in like 5 years.
Oh,
Like
that's the
it's like,
thing. Yeah, that's
yeah,
a fantastic point, because it's like, yeah, 7 trillion is a lot of money, but like the profits that are on the table here is they're just completely unfathomable. If you just look
it's a
at
shell game. They can't make new money. I mean, like there's
no,
only a certain amount of money, right? So they just move it from one company to another. It's really all their money, and it's that the 1% of the 1% are the ones who are in charge of all of it. We
yeah,
think we got out of this royalty system, but it's just
no,
corporate.
it's going to compound even harder. I mean, just look at
Yeah.
what's going to happen with, like, if you just take the pharmaceutical the industry alone. To go off on a tangent here, like obviously we're not talking, we really aren't talking about pharma, but like say when that industry gets AI unleashed on it, and you already have platforms ready to go that previous to like COVID weren't even in existence. You sprinkle some AI on there, and you start coming up with like novel solutions to diseases. And I mean, like, how much money it's just going to be so much profit alone, like
Right.
if you combine all of this technology together, and especially in places like the United States where everybody is just like drugged all the time on like medications, and like it's just gonna be wild, man. It's wild.
Well, the things that are really cool in science is the way that it could process data and deliver results and possible solutions.
Yeah, exactly.
It's unmatched. And I think that that's where, that's going to be amazing, because you're going to be able to put in symptoms, put a drop of blood, whatever the hell the interface is, but it's going to be able to pour through a data set and give you percentages on everything that's possible for you to might have, and solutions that are not necessarily in big pharma's best interest. But that's almost like a utopian view, because big pharma will be paying for this thing, and it'll probably keep spewing out the same stuff. But what I'm seeing is that people are not buying into the mainstream ideas of thinking anymore. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that. I don't know if I'm completely convinced in that yet, but I'm hopeful, because I'm like, witnessing a lot of independent journalism that I think is really important. But I live in New York City, and I see still just a lot of people that are complete zombies and can't really see
Yeah.
outside of like the narrative of a city like New York. So we'll see. I don't have the answer, but
No,
I do
definitely.
agree. I do
None of
agree
us
with
do,
your
but it
point.
does. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's it's a scary filtered world we're living in terms of that stuff. It's like what you can say, and people are in the place is probably the worst place. It's like when you're self-correcting, you have an idea and you're like, this is a great idea. And then you go to like tweet it or post it or say something about it. And then all of a sudden you censor yourself. You're like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to say that to the world.
It's probably not even
It's
that
like,
bad, like what you're trying to say,
no.
right? It's like,
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
am I even thinking about this? Like, it's just like I'm having an honest conversation, and I have to think about if I'm going to like offend somebody. So
Yeah, we're in a strange time when it comes to that stuff. I mean, we did it like with the podcast the other day, just describing pictures. We were like conscious of how we were speaking, describing pictures, because it's, you don't want to describe it wrong or in an offensive way. And it's weird to be so self-censoring, and we're just getting started, kids. It's
yep,
like,
exactly. So
yeah,
that's it. Sora.
that's
It'll
it.
be very cool to follow this, and I would expect that obviously now that OpenAI has let the cat out of the bag on this one, we're going to see the same from Google and any other players in the field.
I love that you still think that. I love your faith that Sora actually created those videos. Now I'm like completely gone off the end. I'm completely skeptical. I don't know
Here's
if any of those things are real.
here's the thing.
Um,
It's I,
those
I
prompts definitely don't work.
yeah. So
You're not getting that.
it might not have, but there are hallucinations in these things, because I've been watching them on a loop, and unless they baked in the hallucinations, but it's they're great. They're super
They really are.
super
They really are.
convincing, and we'll know sooner or later, what the deal is with them. But yeah, I mean, who cares, honestly? Because like it's gonna come to fruition. So
It's going to happen anyway.
yeah,
It's
like
right.
even
It's
if
like,
this is like
if it's not today, it's going to happen.
even if it, and that's kind of like the wild thing about this whole thing, is because again, if any of the listeners have worked in software, had their own startups, like, and I've mentioned this before, the fake it till you make it mentality is real, right? And even Google, when they debuted Gemini, like, they few days later they came out and said, well, this was kind of staged, that was staged. Like, yeah, like 90% of it was real, but there's still aspects of the thing that were produced. So it's just like the way that it goes. So it's almost been accepted in a lot of ways, and you're seeing it here probably as well. I don't know. We'll soon find out. But regardless, it's pretty awesome. I can't wait to see what people actually do with it. I'm interested to see if it is any different in its usage than images from like image LLMs, because I don't know. I think that there's like correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know many people that really use those for anything like professional grade.
Yeah,
But
no, I haven't. I haven't. I mean, I've seen. It's funny because I'm so in tune to watching them that
mhm,
I can pick them out pretty quickly.
yeah,
Right now there's definitely they, but that was what was impressive about the video. That's why I was like, oh my god, like the video is better than the images, because
yeah,
it's like, there's that first one and it's like with an Asian woman, and you see like they do like a close up on her
yeah.
face,
It's
and it's
all
very,
imperfect. Yeah,
it's, yeah, and there was actually a place even for the logo. Like I thought the sunglasses looked like Ray-Bans, and then I looked to see like, oh, is that a Ray-Ban? But it had like some symbol there or something, but it wasn't a brand. But that could easily be a brand. And
yeah,
you have your built-in advertising model in the AI already. Based on the relationships with whoever you're working with.
yeah. I mean, it's highly personalized programmatic advertising is going to be the probably the first and foremost thing that someone's going to build with it, right?
Yeah,
It's like here's all the binary ingredients. Here's the text. Here's like the feel. Here's our demographic. Boom. I'm gonna build that probably. That sounds like a fun project actually.
yeah,
So
it does actually. I was like, wait a minute.
eh,
I think we have a podcast that we need to do that for.
mm, exactly. So I'm loving building on as much as I talk smack on OpenAI sometimes, and it's just it's like a kind of a love hate relationship with the whole thing because it's really awesome and powerful and unlocked a whole bunch of new opportunities. But on the other hand, I am a fan of just being cautious and not moving too insanely fast. But like I said, we talked about race dynamics in previous episodes, so it's
Yeah.
going to be a fully nitro induced race to whatever is at the finish line. So
Yeah, I feel like I'm being dragged behind a train right now. It's just like I'm just kind of I'm like held on with one arm,
yeah,
like the train's going by, and I'm just like, all right, I guess we're going this way.
yeah.
It's wild but fun, and yeah, man. I think
All right. Well,
talk again next week.
indeed, that was our 43-minute rant about Sora. Check it out. Let us know what you think, and thanks for listening. Everyone have a great day.